Welcome to Linda's Corner. My name is Linda Bjork, and today we're going to be talking about spiritual self-care. I'm delighted to welcome special guest Roger Butts. Roger is an ordained minister and has several years' experience as a hospital chaplain in Colorado Springs. He's also the author of Seeds of Devotion, Weekly Contemplations on Faith. Welcome, Roger. I'm so glad you could join with me today.
I am delighted to be here with you, Linda. Thank you so much. And it's a real pleasure to talk with you and talk with your folks about my book and about where it came from and what it's about. I'm just delighted to be here.
Thank you. I'm excited. We get to talk about your book. Can we also talk about you've been a hospital chaplain during this COVID time? And what has that been like? Did they allow you to go in the hospital, or did they, I know sometimes visitors or people are not allowed.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm a staff chaplain, so we worked every day. I'm a full-time staff chaplain, so I have a number of stories in the book about it as well, but it's been a tough year and a half, and I am so glad to be finding a little bit of relief. It feels like our numbers are going down and we're sort of crossing a boundary of being free from this a little bit. But I just had a COVID death last week, and the first time I had a COVID death, I think, was last March or something. And it was so early and it was so sad, and the family just thought, we've got to be able to do something about this. Somebody has to be able to fix this, because we just didn't know much about it at the time. And the doctors tried and tried and tried, and we've had a lot of nurses, especially on critical care and other places where COVID is, really stretched to their limit. So if you know nurses, give them hugs or get them some cookies or something. Write them a letter of thanks, because they've been through it this year. And it's been a long year. So I went into COVID rooms on occasion. I tried not to go into COVID rooms sometimes, but people ask me all the time, where do you see God in all of this? And I really do see God in those nurses who are putting on protective equipment for loved ones who will, know that they're not going to see their loved ones leave the hospital, but they get gowned up and protected and they go in, and those nurses are just there for them. Chaplains are there for them. Doctors. It's been a good learning. I learned a lot this year.
Well, thank you for your service, because I believe in addition to our physical care, when we are thinking of our mortality, spiritual care is extremely important, because then we realize that this life, we don't get to stay forever. And a lot of times we don't even think about that. We just think, oh, we live forever. And then when something happens and we realize we don't.
It's a fragile project. We have this human life. And so it's a privilege to walk with people in trauma, to walk with people who are facing their own mortality, facing loved ones' mortality. It's just a privilege. And I have a number of poems and prayers and stories related to that in this book. And so that's part of what this book is about, is to help people name their experience, have a prayerful orientation toward it, and then to ask the right questions to alight their compassion and imagination. You want to hear one of the poems I wrote or read, one of the prayers that I read?
Yes, please.
In the face of this COVID experience?
Yes.
I'm seeing a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, justifiably. We're in a tough time, and I don't know what to say or to do. I will do my little part over and over again. And I keep coming back and back to the poetic utterances God looked at the diversity of all things and said, "It is good, it is very good." I have nothing to say, but I'll offer this prayer for the broken and the brokenhearted and the suffering and the hurting. One love, one family, one world. Maybe tonight you're not 100%. Maybe just now you're hurting or struggling or in pain. Maybe you're distracted or confused. Just a reminder that God, when looking upon all of God's creation, even you, even me, said, "It is good and it is beautiful." So rest this evening, knowing you are precious in God's sight and that you are enough. You're a good gift. Oh God, we give you thanks for all of your creation, all of your people. Comfort the sick and the hurting, the ones easy to ignore, whose voices are silenced. Give strength to the weak, give courage to the fearful, give wisdom to the confused, and bless all with peace. Amen.
That's beautiful.
It's been a tough year.
It's been a very tough year.
It's been a tough year. So the nice thing about this year is that so I had some space and time, and I put this book together. So this was my little COVID creation.
COVID creation, and how many of us have COVID creations? I also wrote a book during COVID. It was a wonderful way to help. It was my attempt to help and reach out to people who need help, which is exactly what you're trying to do from our different aspects. So that's beautiful.
Yes.
So
what's your book called?
My book is called "You Got This: An Action Plan to Calm Fear, Anxiety, Worry, and Stress."
Yes, amen. Just the title makes me happy. Just the title.
Well, let's talk some more about your book. I understand that you have some quotes and thoughts from Buddha and Muhammad and others, and I love that. I love when we can embrace truth wherever we find it. So would you be willing to share with us some wisdom from Buddha and some wisdom from Muhammad? And then we should round it out with some wisdom from Christ.
Yeah, I love it. And there are stories from like James Baldwin, the gay black writer, Martin Luther King. There's wisdom from all over the place in here. And of course, my deepest influence is Thomas Merton, and there's quite a bit of Thomas Merton in there too. All right, so the Buddha. Let me find the Buddha. The death of the Buddha. Are you ready?
Bring it.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Bring it. The death of the Buddha. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. So that's a little quote from Galatians on top. Here's the story about the Buddha. We know that the Buddha's mother had a dream. A white elephant offered her a flower and entered her side, and 10 months later a baby was born, the baby who would become the Buddha. We know it was prophesied that this baby would become a great ruler or a holy man. We know he was born to some pretty big privilege, and that above all, he was raised to not have to experience or even encounter any of the normal suffering that comes along with living a human life. And we know that somehow, at some time, he was taken beyond the gates of his sheltered growing up place, and that on his ride he came face to face with a sick man, a corpse, and an old man. 3 different people. "What is this?" he said. The driver told him the truth. "This is what happens to everyone. This is what it means to be alive." And he knew he had to go on a quest to learn for himself what it meant to be fully human. After a few false starts, he became the enlightened one. He became a teacher, a guide. He became the Buddha. No easy journey, but he found his way. He found his tree. He found his path. And he discovered that all creation is endowed with all the keys to fulfillment and happiness. But unhappiness prevails because we just aren't aware of the possibilities. But what I'm drawn to is his death. What fascinates me are those last moments. Maybe he had some bad mushrooms. Maybe he ate some bad pork. Who knows? I don't know. He was 80 years old. He asked to be laid on his side as his students and friends around him wept. It's okay, he said. This is a beautiful, amazing world. I would gladly bask in this beautiful world for another 100 years, but the time has come. It's okay. It is said that when he died, the earth shook. The trees bloomed, and the petals of this new life fell gently on his body. I like to think that that is precisely what happened. But before he died, he said, "Be your own light." I can die happily. I have not kept a single teaching hidden in a closed hand. Everything that is useful for you, I have already given. Be your own guiding light. Everything's impermanent. Strive and do so diligently, the Buddha said.
That is
So,
lovely.
Here's the prayer that goes along with that.
Okay.
Here's the prayer. You ready?
Yes.
May life surprise you. May life surprise you today. May a sense of grace come out of nowhere in the middle of your daily tasks. May a sense of peace find you in the unlikeliest of places. May a sense of courage and renewal find you. May God's love surround you. And may a gentleness, a returning quietness, and a restoring stillness be with you now and always. A restored wholeness is yours to claim and embrace. And may faith, hope, and love be your constant companions. God bless your day.
That's lovely.
And then
there's more.
And then the reflection questions. So there's always a story, reflection, prayer, and reflection questions. When did you come in contact with suffering? What has it taught you? How do you understand yourself as a light in the world? How do you attempt to make of yourself a light? What false starts were part of your journey, and why are they important? What did you learn from those false starts?
That's beautiful. So taking the story of Buddha and then expounding and learning from it. As you were sharing this story, I was also thinking about different things that we can learn from the story of Buddha, things that I observed. One is he was sheltered and he lived in the palace. But the truth is, we can never be sheltered from aging and death. The only way to be sheltered from aging is to die young. And we can't be sheltered from sickness. It can climb walls and it can affect anyone. It doesn't care how much money you have. COVID didn't care how much money people had. It was not biased by any race, color, gender, anything. It's pretty universal. So that was kind of interesting.
Yes.
That even when we try to...
his parents were really wanting to keep him protected. And,
absolutely. And we do our best.
That's not the way to go.
Yes and no. I mean, there are things that I would like to protect my children from, but within reason. And I also thought it was interesting that after opening the gates and exploring the world at the very end, having seen the good, the bad, the ugly, the suffering, the aging, the death, the sickness, he said, it's a beautiful world. It's a beautiful life. And I love that in spite of that there are challenges and trials and hard things, that it is a beautiful life.
I mean, the first reflection I read to you had God looking at the world and saying, it's good, it's beautiful, it's perfect, right? And now the Buddha on his deathbed saying the same thing.
Right.
We're just surrounded by beauty.
And hopefully we can get to the point where we recognize it and say, oh, it's a beautiful life. It's a beautiful world. All right, let's hear some Muhammad then.
The Muhammad story is about, this is called Muhammad's Night Journey. Exalted is the one who took the servant by night from Al-Masjid Al-Haram to Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, whose surroundings we have blessed, to show him of our signs. Indeed, he is the hearing, the seeing. That's from the Quran. I love that. He is the hearing. He is the seeing. I love that. It's so sensory, it's so enfleshed. It's so embodied. I really like the story about Muhammad. Muhammad is at his lowest point. His business is suffering. His beloved wife, his main source of consolation in this world, has died. And his uncle who raised him has also died. So he's having a bad moment. One night in his sleep, having left his town, he prays, O merciful and compassionate, you are the Lord of the oppressed, and you are my Lord. I do not care for anything except your pleasure. I seek refuge in your light, which illuminates all darkness. I should pray that I never incur your wrath and displeasure. There is no strength or power except through you. Gabriel, the angel, visits Muhammad, wakes him up, takes him to a winged creature, Al-Barak. Al-Barak takes Muhammad to the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. At some point, Gabriel takes Muhammad's heart out of his chest and washes it with water. And then Gabriel brings forth a vessel of gold filled with wisdom and faith and pours it into Muhammad's heart. Is that amazing? Is that beautiful? I love that.
A change of
takes
heart.
Out his heart, washes it. Isn't that amazing? Al-Barak has gone as far as he can, but Gabriel keeps Muhammad company as they travel to the seven heavens. There they meet Jesus, Moses, Abraham, John the Baptist, and others. At each heaven, there is a gate and a watcher. The watcher says at each heaven, Who goes there? It is I, Gabriel, responds the angel. The watcher always asks, Who's with you? Muhammad, the angel replies. In response, the watcher asks a most important question. Has he been called? Yes, he has. Wonderful, then proceed. At every heaven, the prophet encounters another prophet. He meets Adam as the first one, the father of mankind. The prophet greets Adam with the greetings of peace. Delighted to see the greatest of his descendants, Adam replies, Welcome, my son. Welcome, O prophet of Allah. At each heaven he sees different pillars of the faith. Jesus and John, Aaron, Enoch, and so on. They all celebrate seeing their brother in faith. In the sixth heaven, Muhammad encounters Moses. And in the seventh, the great Abraham, who is honored as one who sincerely yearns for and seeks the unity of God with all creation. It's a cloud of witnesses, a brotherhood and sisterhood of goodness and mutuality. Muhammad ascends to heaven on his own, having been cheered on and encouraged and accompanied along the way. The last part is his alone. He's in the presence of Allah. They converse, they talk. Muhammad asks Allah, How often must my people pray? 50 times a day, God says. Muhammad says, So shall it be. On the way down, Muhammad encounters Moses again. Moses says, What did you talk about? I asked how often my people should pray. Moses is curious. Oh, what did God say? Muhammad tells him, 50 times a day. Somewhat nonchalantly. Moses is not convinced. Not possible. Go back and talk some more. The next number was 40, then 30, and it went like this, back and forth, Moses sending Muhammad back to God to talk about how many times to pray. Until finally, God said 5 times a day. He encounters Moses again, and Muhammad says, I'm not going back no matter what you say. So 5 times a day to pray it is. What a powerful, wondrous story. The gold in the vessel of faith and wisdom, the cloud of witnesses cheering Muhammad on, and Moses and Muhammad and Allah, God, all collaborating to come to a decent number of times per day to pray. It's one of my favorite stories in all of religious literature. Final thought. I love that at his lowest, when all might be lost, when he was in the midst of grief and disorientation, Muhammad is taken on this journey. It is a story of deep hope.
Very nice. So is that your favorite story in religion?
No. That was hyperbolic. It's like in the top 5. Maybe the top 4.
Top 4, top 5. Okay. So what do you love about it? What makes it just resonate with you?
That Muhammad has to take this journey. He's got to take this path. He's in the middle of despair. He's in the middle of losing it all. And he says to God, you are my liberation. You are the path out of oppression. And all of a sudden an angel comes, gets him, takes him to heaven. And what happens in heaven? What happens along that path for Muhammad? He's not alone. Jesus is there. Moses is there. Enoch is there. Sarah, Hagar. Doesn't matter what religious tradition they are, in my reading of it, they're going to cheer each other on. And that's what we do too. We just cheer each other on. And, he's got to take that. And the other one is like, we all need mentors, right? So Muhammad is like 50 times a day. But who could pray 50 times a day? Nobody. Moses, a little bit more experienced, a little wiser, says, go back. And they come up with 5, right? So I love that story.
Okay.
You want to hear the prayer?
Yes, let's hear the prayer that goes with it.
And then the reflection questions, okay? So here's the prayer. Only and everything matters. The divine inner essence and all the little pieces too. The little piece that is me, the little piece that is you. The bird and the tree, the bird holding the fish, both and. The owl and the mouse, the church, the sun and the moon, the river and the sea, the seeker and the finder, the lost and the not so lost. Your anger and your tears, your first smile and your last, all of it divine, all of it belongs. Amen.
Very nice. All right, let's hear the questions.
Here are the questions. You ready? I won't make you answer them.
Oh, good to know.
If you want, you can. If you had a vessel full of gold with your wisdom and faith in it, how would you describe the contents?
So the vessel is made out of gold and the wisdom is the inside. What was the other thing?
How would you describe the contents? How would you describe the contents of your vessel full of wisdom and faith?
Yeah, so just a visual analogy. I guess I would kind of see it as an oil lamp. It would be filled with drops of oil. That's the first thing that pops into my head.
Let's say that oil lamp, full of your wisdom and faith, could be shared with another person. What would be inside the container?
That it could be shared. Oh, okay.
Right? Because, so here's the other one. This is about the folks who escorted Muhammad to heaven. Who is walking with you? Who is cheering you on? Who is among your cloud of witnesses?
That's lovely. Who would you pick, or who would you imagine would be walking beside you?
Thomas Merton, my wife, my dog, my kids, a few others, Jesus, Buddha. And then, Martin Luther King, probably, James Baldwin, probably. Have you ever tried praying a consistent number of times every day? I have not, but, have you?
I don't count them. I mean, I pray morning and night and before every meal, and I pray all the time. So I don't worry about a specific time, and I don't worry about a specific number. I try to always have a prayer in my heart.
Right. Very good. So that's a little bit of what this book is about. It's like telling little stories. Some of them are about chaplaincy. Some of them about religious stories. Some of them are from literature. And then the idea is, if you can name your experience, whether it's good or bad, if you can if you can identify the essence of that experience, and then over time have a kind of a prayerful, respectful, honoring, reverential perspective toward it, and come at it from a prayerful place, and then ask those questions about what it all means, then you begin to make sense and have purpose around and build meaning around those experiences. Instead of just stuff happening to you, you can frame it in a way that you can become more resilient, I guess.
Okay, so the purpose is to become more resilient and more aware. And I'm glad you brought back, because you mentioned this before and it caught my attention, and it caught my attention again, the naming it. And what is the power of naming it?
Yes. It's about getting clear about what happened, why it's important, and what part you had in it, what part other people had in it, what control you had, what power you had, what power you couldn't have. And so that's the story.
Well,
that's
excellent.
That's the yeah. What do you think?
Well, I think it's a great book. Is it already out?
Yeah. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. It's at Cokesbury, which is like a Methodist book house. It's the Unitarian Universalists have it in their bookstore.
Wonderful.
So it's around.
Well, congratulations.
Bookshop, if you like. Thank you. Now, do you want to hear one last one with a more Christian perspective?
Oh, yes, please. That would be perfect.
All right. This is called Do You Love Them? Tender words we spoke to one another are sealed in the secret vaults of heaven. One day, like rain, they will fall to earth and grow green all over the world. That's Rumi. So, here's the little story. It was either 1999 or 2000 during my time at Wesley Theological Seminary, pursuing a Master's of Divinity, on my way to being ordained as a Unitarian Universalist minister. I was studying at Wesley because I lived in D.C. many years and wanted to stay there. It was a good fit for me. I loved it. I remember one night a few friends and I headed out to the Washington National Cathedral to hear Archbishop Desmond Tutu. We were excited. We got there early with plenty of time to spare so we could get a good seat. My friends and I were all in church history that semester. I remember distinctly that we all brought little index cards with definitions and dates and key figures so we could study and quiz each other during any extra time we might find. I remember that one of my church history professors, Ted Campbell, used to tell us that God worked through the crazy ones. I liked that idea. Even with plenty of time to spare, the place was packed. After settling, I pulled out my index cards, Athanasius, the Cappadocian Fathers, the Council of Nicaea. I began reviewing and studying my cards as the audience awaited Desmond Tutu's place on the stage. I pondered my cards and the beautiful drama that each represented. Intrigue, love, spying, compassion, wars, beauty, the paradox of it all. The person next to me started to laugh, an engaging, full laugh that I could tell was not mean-spirited. I looked up from my index cards and toward the woman next to me, middle-aged, big smile, southern accent. I smiled at her as if to say yes. She said, "I am an Episcopal priest. I serve a church in Southern Virginia." I'm laughing because I remember learning all that stuff in seminary. She had gone to School of Theology at the University of the South in Sewanee. We talked for a bit. I told her I had a test coming up the next day, and she said this: "Yes, you have to learn that stuff. Learn it all. We had to. So do you. But once you get settled in the church, I have a little secret for you. Want to hear it?" "Of course," I said. She told me with a gentle wisdom, "They don't care so much about all that stuff. All they really want to know is, do you love them? If you can say yes to that, all the other stuff falls into place." I can't remember one thing Desmond Tutu said that night, although I'm sure he was brilliant. But I've never forgotten the wisdom delivered to me through that Southern Episcopalian woman priest, so full of laughter and insight.
That is lovely. And isn't it true that there are learning moments all around us and at all different times and from all different sources, and you learned something, and it was not from the source that you were intending. You came expecting to hear Desmond Tutu. Exactly. You came bringing your flashcards and expecting to learn from that, and the person you learned from was someone who laughed and engaged in conversation. So that's quite beautiful.
That's Seeds of Devotion. The chaplain at Yale says, in this busy world, these brief reflections get right to the heart of things. So
that is lovely. And how nice to be able to have the support of other people and to be able to say, well done, you did a good thing. That's exciting. Well, congratulations. I'm super, super happy for you. And thanks for joining with me and visiting with me today and sharing a little bit, some stories and some questions and some wisdom. That was very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. God bless you.
Oh, appreciate it. In closing, I'd like to share a quote from Buddha. He said, on the long journey of human life, faith is the best of companions. It is the best refreshment on the journey, and it is the greatest property. Today, I invite you to add the companion of faith on your journey of human life. See you next time on Linda's Corner.